Welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to be diving into copper etching. Now, I have done copper etching before, but many years before. It's been at least 5, probably 6 years since I've done copper etching. So I found all my supplies. As you can see, my steel wool is disintegrating, but I found my supplies and I thought I would give it a go and see what I remember. I did have to buy some new salt and some new patina because mine was, well, I had thrown it out a while ago because it was quite old. So I'm just starting off by cleaning some of this copper because it's been sitting in my collection for a while. You can see the camera reflection in the shine of this copper. These are just copper sheets that I bought, I want to say on Amazon, but it's been too long, I don't remember. Anyways, for this process, you essentially need to get copper. You have a waste piece. This is my old waste piece that I have used many times, and you have the piece that you actually want to etch. And you need some sort of resist ink that you can put on the copper, and you need a power source. In this case, I have a DC power source, but you can use a 6-volt battery and it should work just fine. So you need to clean the resist, or clean the copper. In this case, I am putting on gloves to keep the oil from my hands from getting on the copper. Now, it's been so long that I had not realized that these were latex gloves, and I have a latex allergy. So you'll see me change gloves about halfway through this video because I basically started breaking out almost immediately. So I'm going to do 2 test pieces in this video. The first one is a sign to go above my dog's bowl that says beer barrel because he likes to visit the beer barrel before we go on walks, and it seems appropriate for such a hobbity type dog. In this case, this is just laser printer paper that I have put on with an iron. I'll show you that process in a bit. Right now I am preparing the solution. It's just a plastic container with a whole bunch of kosher salt that I am pouring in. I probably used a little too much salt for this first one, but you know, more salt is fine. It's perfectly fine. Just stirring it up a bit to kind of mix the salt in. It's just a plastic ruler because I was too lazy to get a spoon. Alright, so I have ironed on the laser printer ink, the paper, ink side down, and the heat transfers the ink to the copper, and then you wash away the paper. The first time I did this, I didn't leave enough, I didn't leave the iron on long enough, so not all the ink got transferred. Some of it did, but not all of it. So I had to do it again. It worked out just fine the second time around, for the most part. And then the second project that I do, you'll see I just use Sharpie to draw with it, and that works pretty well too. You can see here the ink came off, or the paper came off without leaving the ink. So I had to do it again, and it worked out well enough. This is round 2. A much better imprint. Having changed gloves since I was itching, I'm just filling in a few gaps that the ink didn't quite catch with Sharpie. Now, Sharpie doesn't give the most clean resist line. The laser printer paper ironed on and then washed away does a little better as far as getting those crisp details, but the Sharpie works well enough. Good enough for government work, at least. So I'm taping around the edges. The back of this copper sheet still has its protective covering on it. I'm taping around the edges. I will drill a hole in the corner, and then I'm going to thread some copper wire through that hole to attach the lead to. This just lets it hang in the water relatively easily. Alright, the scrap piece of copper is already in there, hanging by a piece of copper wire, and now I'm just putting in the piece that I want to etch. And I will be attaching the negative piece to the scrap copper and the positive to the piece that I'm trying to etch. Now, I turned up my power source to a 6 volts. There's a fair bit of resistance, so you'll see that the actual current that's going through is quite a bit different. But even so, it works out pretty well. Now, I will note, I did not leave in my pieces for long enough. I was slightly impatient and had forgotten how long it actually takes. It should take an hour at least, probably a little bit more, to get a really good, solid, deep etch, especially on a piece of that size, which is about a 5x5. I didn't do it for that long because I wanted to do 2 pieces and because I was impatient and because I haven't done this for many years and had completely forgotten how long it takes. So, it still worked, just not as well as I was like. There you can see the actual current that's going through. It goes up, or the actual voltage that goes through, it goes up in a bit. And so now I'm going to prepare my second sheet that I'm going to do after, while the first one is etching, which is cleaning the copper. Again, these pieces have been in my collection for a very long time, so they need a bit of a clean. And I'm really only wearing gloves to keep the oils off of my fingers, although later on, sometimes it's good to have the gloves protecting your hands from chemicals like the copper water or the patina, which don't do what I did and use gloves. There you can see the protective coating on the back, and again I'm just taping around the edges to have a nice clean line. This is not necessary. It's helpful, but it's not necessary. So I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to etch. I started out drawing a tree, and I thought that would be fun, kind of a tree of life thing. And then I decided that I really hated how it was turning out, so I clean it off and start over. The Sharpie comes off really nicely with just some mineral spirits, and then you can redraw. And at this point I decided I was going to do a dragon because I really like dragons, and I can do that without having to have a detailed sketch, so it works out pretty well. While I am drawing this dragon, you'll see in the left side of the screen, the plastic container has turned rather murky and foggy, and that is just the byproduct of the etching happening. Little bits of copper flake off from the current running through it, and so I'm just doing this while the other copper is being etched in the background. I should have gone over the Sharpie, I guess, a second time once it had dried. I discovered later on that, especially this part that I'm coloring in solid black, it didn't turn out quite so neat and tidy as I had hoped, but I did not remember to do a second coat. I really also should have just left it in for a lot longer than I did on both projects. Still, I think it looks rather nice at the end. So now you can see what the water actually looks like. The fact that you can still see the copper pieces means I probably didn't leave it in for long enough. I'm just gonna pull it out though, rinse it off, and see what it looks like. You can tell that it definitely did something. It definitely etched. The laser printer ink remains on there, and I just cleaned that up with quite a bit of scrubbing. At this point, I have put in the dragon. It is now working, and so I'm just cleaning off the ink, cleaning off some of the residue from the etching process. The ink took quite a bit to clean off, I will admit. I was not expecting that laser printer ink to be quite so persistent, but it did come off in the end. Again, I'm just using mineral spirits here with some thick paper towel. I do shine it up a bit with steel wool. The steel wool that I have is really old. It's so old that I think it's rusting, and it's just falling apart every time I touch it. So that I use better steel wool than I did. Otherwise you won't get quite so much of a mess. So now I'm just using some snips to cut down the size of this piece a bit. I could have done a smaller piece to start with, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and so I just decided I was going to cut it down after the fact. It's pretty thick copper now that I'm thinking about it. I mean, not super thick. It's fairly standard, but it sure felt thick when I was trying to cut through it with those snips. I mean, oh my, it took a bit. Having to bend the copper away from me and then keep cutting it. In future, I will just start with a smaller piece. Especially since I now have to sand the edges down, and that will probably require a belt sander. Okay, you can sort of see how it turned out here. That's the back, really shiny. The front, it is a bit shiny where the letters are, but not wonderfully so. So, you'll see it better when I put some patina on it. Pulling out the dragon, I definitely should have left this in probably another hour, frankly. It was in there just under an hour, and I probably should have left it for another hour to get a really good deep etch. You can see the ink stays on there, and when I wash it off, and then the ink, the Sharpie ink, just comes off really nicely with mineral spirits. But of course we have to say hello to my dog, who is sitting on top of the couch for some reason. So helpful, Willow. So helpful. And I'm just cleaning it up with some steel wool. Again, I need better steel wool because it's really terrible. So you can sort of see the text. Obviously it did etch in, but not deep enough. And for the dragon, the etching wasn't quite as precise because the Sharpie isn't quite as good as the laser printer ink, and it definitely needed a deeper etching, but it's absolutely there, and I think it looks really cool. So now I am just adding on some patina. This is Jack's brown patina. I don't know if I'm using this stuff wrong. I haven't used this brand before or what, but it didn't do what I expected it to do. Maybe I need to use a whole lot more than I did. Maybe I need to let it sit or something. The instructions didn't say anything about length of time to leave it on there. They just said apply and then rinse. So I did, and it didn't do a lot. Much at all. Obviously the copper has aged a bit. This is a couple days after I finished the project, and so there's just some natural aging that's going to happen, and so I applied this patina with a brush and a paper towel to try and speed up that natural process, and it did something, just not a lot, because you clean it up with steel wool after the fact, and it just, I don't know. I'll be doing another project with a deeper etch to see if that makes a difference. I think it probably will. Actually, I think it'll make all the difference. When it comes to the dragon patina, I think that worked out a little better. I was a little more liberal with the application and also a little more precise with the application. I won't say it's stellar, but it definitely shows up a lot better. Regardless, I am quite pleased with how these two turned out. Even if the patina is not wonderful, even if the etching isn't as deep as I would like, I really like how it turned out, and it's such an easy thing to do with water and salt and a bit of power, and you get them some really cool copper pieces. The dragon's definitely my favorite. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions about this process, do let me know and I will write up a more detailed description of how it's done. Hope you have a great day, and I shall see you next time.